good afternoon, good night. How you doing? This is MCM and you're listening to You're Probably Right. Today we are going to have a serious conversation. Well, maybe not a serious conversation, but there's going to be a serious talk happening here. Now, of course, I'm only doing the talking, but just stay tuned. This episode of You're Probably Right podcast is brought to you by Gold Bond. Look, if you're grown and your skin still is acting kind of thirsty, fix that. Gold Bond Pure Moisture Daily Body and Face Lotion is made with 7 moisturizers, 3 vitamins, and packed with hyaluronic acid. Did I say that right? Hyaluronic acid and naturally sourced grapeseed oil. No parabens, no dyes, no fake fragrances, just up to 24 hours of hydration. So buy more than one. Clinically shown to keep your skin from looking like it's been beat down. Just straight up. What's up, y'all? This is MCM. This is episode 215. Title, Real Talk on Relationships. What we lie about, what we settle for, and what still matters. What's up, guys? So hopefully that didn't sound too weird. Going a different route with some of this. Still, people are bothering me about not having a video with my podcast, and I'm just not there. You know, when I envisioned doing this podcast, I always envision me just hanging out talking to a friend. Maybe we're on a long car and I'm just pulling something. This is one of the type of people I'm thinking of when I do this podcast. You know, I just think of me just having a conversation driving down the road. Maybe it's the longest road in your city. Maybe you're just outside and you happen to have a nice pair of headphones hooked up to your iPhone or whatever it is, and you're just listening. You're doing yard work. You're chopping trees down. You're out and you're a lifeguard and you have to watch a pool for 5 hours and you just need somebody to talk to, someone who can relate to normal, everyday, humdrum, run-of-the-mill life. Joe Blow, Jane Blow. You know what I mean? So that's what I envisioned. So that's why I haven't done any visuals really, because it's like, what does it matter what I look like? All you need to know is I am MCM and this is You're Probably Right. And I'm talking to you. And this podcast is for you. It is a podcast, not a Christian podcast, but it is a podcast by a Christian. And therefore, I don't stand on anything except for the word of God, except I'm not out here preaching it. I'm just an average guy. And I'm just talking to you. You know what I mean? Maybe you're just at the beach by yourself, hanging out, and you're trying to tan up, or maybe you're at the gym and you're working out and you just you want to be a little bit thoughtful and mindful while you're working out, not just listening to beats drum you away into some distant, far off blue planet. You know what I mean? Like you still want to have something mindful to think about, and I want to be that for you. So it could be just you're washing dishes and you're always washing dishes and you're always doing all the house chores by yourself. Maybe you don't have a husband. Maybe you don't have a wife. Maybe you're alone and you're always going to be alone, is so you think. I just want to be that person for you. You know what I mean? Maybe life is, run you rough into the wall and you feel everything's on hold. You think there's opportunities, but opportunities that you don't necessarily think are perfect for you. Or maybe you don't have any opportunities and you just came out of a huge one and you blew it. Maybe you're looking for one. Either way, this podcast is for you. So getting back to that was just off the top of my head, guys. Not that it's that amazing. I'm just saying to you. And yeah, let me just read my stuff, man. Okay. Welcome back to You're Probably Right. I'm your host, MCM. Talking about life in the realest way. The realest way I know how anyways. Today we're talking about something that where every single person listening can relate to. Relationships. Some of you are single and searching. Some of you are locked in and questioning. Some of you are in something and not even sure what to call it. Well, I'm going to do my best to break it down a little bit. Intimate relationships, coworker relationships, the lies we tell ourselves just to keep the space and keep the peace and keep everything status quo, and the quiet truths about, most of us are just, thinking about in our heads and we don't necessarily say out loud. And I'm going to be that voice for you today. So let's just start it off. Hold on a second. I got this music playing in my ear. Here's a funny thing about this podcast. I generally do it with music, not necessarily the music that you can hear, but sometimes I've done it with the music that you can hear. And what has ended up happening is that some of my podcasts have been flagged, like copyrighted, because this person's music or a loop or whatever it is playing in the background, which, if I was raking in a crazy amount of money, they obviously, I guess the person should be welcome to it, I suppose, if I didn't pay for the rights or whatever it is. So just understand that sometimes I got to take a break because I've decided to listen to some other stuff while doing this, and at the same time not playing any music in the background. I really don't know. I really should have canvassed my listeners, just to see what they prefer. They prefer me with a nice light track in the background, giving the music, giving the episode more emotion. Because I call myself a singer, a little bit of a singer. I like emotions, run high with music for me. It's just something that's in me, you know what I mean? I mean, it does it for everybody, but I think people who sing feel it a little bit more. So I always have music in my background. So sometimes it's not like I'm a rapper or anything like that, but I use the music that I'm hearing in my ear to help me to emote better. Hopefully you follow what I'm saying. I know some of you do, for sure. Anyhow, but think about that. That's something for you to think about while you're putting down those weights, or while you decided to trim the side of the lawn there, or whatever. While you're fishing. Fishing's always a good thing. Podcasts and fishing, I'm sure there's a lot of them out there. All right. So, segment 1, we'll go into intimate relationships, the ones that cut deep. Let's be honest. Most people don't know if they're in love or just in a routine. If you're really being honest, you stay in relationships long enough, or if you do stay in a relationship long enough, the lines get blurry. You convince yourself that this is what commitment looks like and hopefully love looks like. But deep down, sometimes something's off. So I'm just going to answer a few questions and we're going to move on. I'm trying to keep it loosey-goosey, guys. Like my podcast in the past has been really rigid. And sometimes I look back and it's like, oh, the reading is so horrible, which I genuinely tried to warn you guys about. But I believe my best podcast is when I'm off just rambling into my mind's eye, off back into my memory of experience and stuff that I've heard, seen, and learned. Okay, so first question. Why do we stay in relationships that don't feel right anymore? And I'm just going to keep it simple. I think people stay because they're comfortable. Some people stay because they believe it's the right thing to do, maybe religiously. Some people stay because they're staying with what's familiar. Some people stay because they're scared. Comfort is always a big one, I think, for most people. It's like, yeah, he's ugly, but I know him. Yeah, he has that scar on his left arm. It looks kind of gross, looks like a worm, but he's my guy. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that's what you're staying for, but I'm saying, like, and that'd be pretty simple of a thing, or pretty shallow of a thing to say you'd want to leave somebody just because they have a scar on their arm. But it's just a lot of us just stay for just the simplest, easy reasons. And you might think, I want to do something else in my life, but I'm just gonna stay. And I said for various reasons. I'm just thinking here. Sorry, guys. A little silence there. I was reading something, but let me just get back to what I was saying here. Hold on. Hold up. Hold up. Wait a minute. Yeah, sorry. There's various things that people stay for, like comfort. I think comfort, peace, people who like routine will definitely stay in a relationship. And sometimes, yeah, you do stay too long, if there is such a thing. You know what I mean? Maybe there is not. Maybe there, the peaks and the valleys of life, with someone within a regular life is just normal. And sometimes you're going to feel amazing about your situation. Sometimes you're not going to feel so great about your situation. And sometimes you just feel like this is your situation. So live it. And I think going through those peaks and valleys are very important. Being honest with yourself and honest with your partner about your, what stage of situations you're in. I mean, I just believe it's a roller coaster. I think it goes up and down. And I mean, maybe it's cool if it's just like a long drive on a flat road with the same scenery every day. But I think it is what it is. And I think it's beautiful when people stay together, you know. Who hasn't, even when they're being young, when they've been young or whatever it is, and hear somebody, somebody passed away and, it says she was with her husband for 57 years. And then right away you go and you add up and you say, well, if I meet somebody today, how many years could I possibly get out of them where I could even approach a milestone like that? Like, there is something definitely to be said about longevity and sticking it out, for better or for worse. Just look at the basic vows that people take, just for better or for worse, for richer or poorer. Maybe you're on top of the world. Maybe you don't have any money. I listened to some case about a guy who was from Toronto, funny enough, from where I'm from. And he became an amazing hairstylist. I'm sure some of you probably know about this story. And he moved to LA and he's living in Palm Beach. Is it Palm Beach? I'm not sure where he is living. But anyway, he's living in a nice place. He's with his wife, who he also, I think she was from Toronto as well. And he just became like the hairdresser or hair design, whatever it is, specialist that was just making a lot of money. He won a lot of awards and everything. And their life seemed to be amazing, but then they started drifting away. And she found somebody else, as people do. And she wanted to figure out how to bump him off. But she stayed with him for so many years. And the person who she got to bump off, the husband, didn't even think she was ever going to leave, because she was constantly saying, why throw away 20 years? You know what I mean? It's just funny, the people who stick in those things, but they're not honest with themselves and not honest with their partner. And a lot of the time, because of that, tragedy ensues, as they say. All right, next question. What's the worst, or what's worse, being alone or being with the wrong person? And I guess the question would have to be, what is the wrong person? I guess that would be the first question you'd have to ask to be able to answer the question properly. Because is the person just the wrong person, or maybe they're just not the perfect person? Because I believe that anybody can be the wrong person if they're not a perfect person. And then my question to you is, what person do you know is perfect? Perfect looking, perfect attitude, perfect sense of humor, perfect work ethic, perfect intimacy. You know what I mean? I think we can all be that perfect person for a person, as long as we're true to ourselves and there is something that has put us together in the first place. Like, I mean, there's nothing like, there's arranged marriages where people just know nothing except for what the person does for a job maybe and how they look. And then they're married. And somehow those people work it out. Now, I don't know. I haven't experienced that type of life, but I've seen many who seem happy. But I guess somebody else would have to speak to that. I wonder, does that person ever become the perfect person? Or maybe if you have like a low amount of criteria, maybe many people can be the perfect person. How about that? And honestly, I bet you a lot of guys would look at it like that. Um, you see, the reality is many times um, women think that like a guy needs so many different things from her in a relationship, and some women, from their expectations of what we expect or what we want, get themselves all in a fuss for absolutely nothing. In this day and age, if we look at the different household chores and things we need to do outside of the house, like maybe getting a mortgage, maybe shoveling the snow, maybe holding down a job, maybe buying the right furniture, or knowing how to put up a bench, like just the different things in life that people do, right? And when you look at the average guy nowadays, I can't say everybody because I think the youngsters are kind of growing up a little bit different, but most guys can do most things for themselves. There's only a couple things we can't do for ourselves. I mean, we can distract ourselves, but we can't comfort ourselves. So that's one thing. Obviously, there's various things you can do on your own intimately, but is it intimacy if it's just you? So there's another thing, and that's a huge thing for most guys. Just having something to be in awe of, you know, and I think from our lives we can change those things from time to time, but nothing is as good as an actually automated thinking lovely woman, if you can find that. You know what I mean? But the whole point is, what I'm saying is, like, I can cook, I can clean, I can wash dishes, I can cut the grass, I can shovel the snow, I can plant flowers, I can grow a garden, I can vacuum, I can deal with decor of a home, I can fix things in a home. Just like, honestly, like, I'm just saying, this is the average guy, I think, from my age group, above 50. I think the average guy can do most of those things, most of the 70s, 80s kids, 90s a little bit. But there's a few things we can't do for ourselves. But I think sometimes people think that guys can do nothing. And maybe if they were babied, maybe if they had no chores around the house or whatever it is like that, maybe they really can't. But many of us guys my age are self-sufficient, and just the things that we're not self-sufficient in are really, 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 really important to us. So I would say for sure being alone, even if, like, you know what I mean, being the wrong person is different also from being a horrible person. So it just depends on how you look at it. It's a simple question. Like, as I said, the question was, and you can think about this for yourself. Your ideas obviously matter. I'm not here giving you advice or telling you what to do. But being alone is just being alone. Some people would say being alone is like you better off being dead. Not really, because you can still experience things. It's just, having someone to come home to, someone to be intimate with, someone to love you, hopefully. And that's when things get kind of funny. If a person doesn't know how to love you, if they become the wrong person all of a sudden, or maybe that's just their way, and you have to learn how to mold it with each other. You know what I mean? Like, but as I said, like, being a wrong person or being a horrible person is two different things. I think that many people could be married to many different people, but not everybody's gonna think that they're on top of the world and it's amazing dream and they couldn't have dreamt how amazing things. There's some people like that, and some people are only like that from weeks at a time. Some people are like that days at a time. Some people are like that for minutes at a time, and then the rest of the time it's like, why am I here? But it really, really depends. All right, I'll move on to the next questions. There's so much things that can be said about that, and there's so many different tangents I could obviously go off on. But I personally would say it's worse being alone. Although, like for me, I am an introvert, but you don't necessarily want to just be alone. Even though you're fine with your own company, you can entertain yourself, you can find something to do, but nothing like life. And you can't find life if there's no life in front of you. You know what I mean? You're obviously alive, but you need to be alive for someone else, and someone needs to be alive for you. And think about that. Okay, is honesty always the best policy, or do most people only say what's safe? And definitely, I would say the latter. Most people do say what's safe. Most people are not gonna really, really tell their boss or their coworker, and sometimes their spouse, what they really think. It's like, you know what, honey, you're really pretty, but your breast stinks. Or, honey, your butt really does look big in that dress, and I don't like big butts. You know what I mean? Or he's a really nice guy, but he's ugly. Or he's really ugly, but he has a lot of money. Or he has a great worth ethic, but he doesn't know how to spend his money. He doesn't know how to do things for people. He doesn't say thank you. He doesn't ask, or he asks too much. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's just so many different things. But I'm like going off on a tangent. But I would say definitely that's what people do. People don't say what they really, really think. You just have all these thoughts in your head, and maybe sometimes you treat people according to the thoughts in your head, and sometimes they have no idea why you're treating them that way. It's because today you look ugly, buddy. Yesterday you looked okay. You got a face for October, November, and March. I bet you people didn't even know that's a thing. There's some people in the colder climates, I'm telling you, who look better in October, November, and March. You can figure out why. I bet you can Google it and you'll probably see something on that. Okay. Definitely honesty is the best policy, though. I think the closer you can get to honesty, I mean, you're probably not going to have a huge circle of friends or people who really, really want to be around you. Or you'll have a lot of people who want to be around you, but only for certain times. Maybe for only the truth. They'll come around you, but they don't want to really hear the truth. Um, I think the closer you can get to always being honest is the best. It is definitely the best policy. You see, they say the truth hurts. Sometimes it does, but that's probably because you're not very humble. The more humble you are, the easier it is to take truth. Right? That's just something I've learned. Some people, you tell them something, and it's not very favorable, or it's not in their favor, or it doesn't make them, look good, or it puts them in a bad light. And if they're very, very humble, they can take it, maybe giggle about it, maybe be sad about it for a second, but move on and realize that you were telling them to help them out. Sorry, as I said, a few things keep happening, and so I got to end up going silent for absolutely no reason. But yeah, that's not too. I should probably cut that, but again, this is just live, so I don't really cut anything. I don't cut anything I say. I don't cut any dark spots. I think one of the first problems I ever had with doing a podcast is what is was was the hardest thing was just to be okay with silence for a little bit. And I mean, you can obviously see the time on the podcast, so you know that I'm still here and I'm going to be there for whatever amount of more minutes when you look down at your device or computer or whatever it is. But yeah, so spots are there. Just understand that maybe something clicked on and is driving me nuts in my ear, and I have to, close a couple windows. I do this podcast with a couple different screens. I'm still ticked off about my middle screen, which I don't think anybody really knows. I use a MacBook Pro, and at my job, I broke my screen. And I tried to get reimbursed for it, but of course they tell you not to use your own device. So if you break your device and it's yours, it's on you. But when I found out that my screen was going to cost me more money, like almost 75% of buying a new computer, I said, let me just hook it up to a bunch of screens. And actually, I'm kind of happy I did. It's just if I wanted to do some writing in a park somewhere, it wouldn't really work if I had my computer on me because my screen is broken. But let's fix that hopefully one day. Yeah, I should get a Patreon account. Maybe you'd want to help. I'm just messing with you. But really, just joking. But am I? I am. Okay. Next question. So yeah, be honest. I mean, for me, being as honest as possible without hurting people's feelings is so important. And I don't mean without hurting so then you lie. It's you're telling them the truth, but in the best possible way for each situation. Sometimes you need to be quite blunt so somebody will stop something. You know what I mean? Because you're trying to help them. But sometimes you need to be as soft as Charmin. You know what I mean? With some people with the truth. And they can take it better. It's kind of like how they say with athletes, it's you can't be all grueling and hard with every single athlete. Some are prima donnas, some are soft, and some need to be handled with care. And some people don't like when you handle them with care because then it makes them feel like you're lying to them. You know what I mean? Like there's so many different temperaments. But at the end of the day, if you can figure out that honesty is the best policy and live that way, then I think you're definitely ahead of the game. I tell you, it's really weird. I'm already at 26 minutes of this podcast, and to me, it's just crazy because I feel like I haven't said anything. There's so much more that I could be adding in this, and I think that's going to be one of the holes in my podcast in future when people are trying to listen to it and try to catch things that go together. I think my podcast will take you away like a good episode of your favorite show that has some like relationships and some continuations from episode to episode and season to season with different relationships, and then all of a sudden they cut, kind of like a Seinfeld episode, maybe if you ever watched Seinfeld. Sometimes they get you into a whole maybe cast characters and story, and then the next episode doesn't really leave that much except for maybe a little piece of what was happening in the previous, and hopefully you understand. Not really soap opera-ish, but each episode is kind of in a world of its own. You understand what I'm saying? Hopefully you know what I mean. That's as best I can explain it. I'm sorry. Okay. Can two people grow at different speeds and still stay together? For sure. And the reason why I believe that is because we've all experienced different things growing up, and we've all lived at different points in different places for different amounts of time. So, for instance, if you're a guy and you're, say, 10 years older than your wife, or 5 years older, or 20 years older, you would have experienced different things. You would have seen a couple Olympics that the other person didn't see. You would have experienced families being together or apart growing up for maybe in a different way or for a longer period of time, or maybe you didn't experience family at all and you've been alone all your life and just being taken care of by different care providers and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like there's so many different things that give us experience and really understanding and knowledge and wisdom in different areas. And some of us have come across a lot more wisdom, understanding, knowledge, like more than others. Like, for instance, and not saying that the person, okay, just listen to this. You might have a person who every day gets up in the morning, feeds the chickens, goes out to the sea by themselves or with another person. Maybe they talk about life, but they don't get that much outside interaction. So there's so many things that they don't understand. Now, they might understand about fishing. They might understand about what side of the boat is best to throw your line on when the sun is on a certain direction, or depending on what time of year and how warm the water is, depending on the size of the fish. depending on what you understand those things, right? Really, 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 really specified, really intricate little things that maybe other people wouldn't understand, right? But then you take that person, right, and you put them in a life in the city, and they don't know that if they put their new brand new iPhone whatever on the seat beside them, one thing, it's going to be filthy, even if you don't really see it, the things on it. Or but another thing is that if the train is full, or not full, there might be somebody lurking who will take their stuff. So maybe, in other words, maybe they don't have that much street smarts because they've just never been on the streets. Just like if you put the other person, in the middle of nowhere fishing every day for the rest of their lives, there's a lot of things they have to learn about that, but the other person would have lived that already. You understand? So definitely, I believe you can grow at different speeds, because the point is, when you get together, you're probably at different speed anyway. As long as you're growing and you have enough patience, or um, enough effort to maybe take on things that you wouldn't normally take on because things are moving at a faster rate, or the other person's moving at a faster rate. They're more apt, they have a greater aptitude for a lot of different things. Maybe that person likes to watch foreign films and they're also a linguist, so they're picking up on languages, meanwhile you're just struggling with one. You know what I mean? Like, there's different things. I believe patience, humbleness, love covers so much. Next question. What should you look for in a partner if you're starting fresh at 35 or 40? You can tell me this, and if you know, you can email me. No, um, I don't know. It depends, again, who you are. If you're a guy, you're looking for someone who is going to be focused on adult things in life, and peace and joy, and um depending on whether or not you're gonna have kids, or, like, what I mean, like all that stuff. Like, I think a person who's open, but open to be loving, caring, and generous in many different ways. But I mean, I think anybody getting married should be looking for those things, and looking for someone who ignites the ambition to do and to be different things for another person. Because the funny thing is, you'll meet people who don't know a lot, don't have a lot, or maybe they have a lot, but the most the greatest, as I've said many times before, and it doesn't really go, but it makes sense if you're just talking and not writing things down. The greatest ability is availability. You know what I mean? Available for love, available to give, available to receive, available to be happy, available to think out things, and available to, you know what I mean? Like, just, that's the greatest thing. It's not necessarily how smart they are or how beautiful. In essence, maybe maybe you need to be available to lose some weight, or available to get fit or work out together. Like, you know what I mean? Like, availability is the most, maybe I would say available to learn, available to teach. You know what I mean? In so many different assets or facets of life. Assets. That's a nice one. Yeah. So I just think, at this stage in life, love shouldn't feel like survival. You know, I think if it makes you feel smaller, it's probably not love. If it's, disguised in fear and the thirst for routine, then it might be difficult. But I mean, if that's where you're at, you might still be able to make it work. Maybe just listening to this podcast is giving you a different viewpoint. I don't know. All right. We'll go over, because I'm burning time. I'm trying not to have these long podcasts anymore. That's 34 minutes already. Oh my gosh. Okay. Number 2. Work and coworker relationships, playing the game without losing your soul. Your relationship with work matters just as much as your relationships with your partner at many times in your life. Some of y'all are clocking in every day to a place that drains you. And worse, you're doing it with people you can't even stand or you can't even be real with. Depending on your personality, both of those things might be the same. Um, First question. Can you be real with coworkers or is it safer to stay guarded? Obviously, it's safer to stay guarded, but somebody like me, like I know, my interactions at work. You have some people who will stay guarded, keep it as they say professional, and never really get to know people. Laugh, yes. Have lunch, maybe, yeah. Corroborate, no, not corroborate. Co- Cooperate in different situations and make things run smooth, but they almost behave like an app at your job. You know what I mean? Like an app can get things done. An app can help you get things done. An app can teach you things, but there's no person there. Do you understand? So there's no personal relationship. And I mean, I'm not saying you have to have that at work, but I mean, if you spend anywhere between 7 and 9 hours at a job every day, like Monday to Friday, and sometimes on the weekends, or even corresponding with the person, it'd be nice to like the person and for the person to like you and know who you are and be able to be 100% real and truthful. I think I would honestly rather have two or one good friend than to have 15 people who I'm cordial with, but I can never tell them the truth, or I can only tell them the truth sometimes. I think being genuine and being honest and being real and pure um, are what it's all about for me. Because moments and people and relationships, you know what I mean, for life over everything. Um, Obviously not over the Bible, but you know what I mean. I'm saying in life. How do you deal with a toxic boss without losing your sanity? Um, the funny thing is, I personally I try to fight out of um allowing people to do that to me. Like I've seen how some people, bosses treat other coworkers. This one lady, for instance, my job got cursed out by the boss because they had been unprofessional. Not in a horribly terrible way, but it's just something that wasn't that professional. And the boss knew that that person was the person that they could, if the person did a level 2 mischief, let's say at work, the boss, because of probably all their pent up emotions and fact of not being able to approach people on a regular basis, in other words, they have to do things kind of sidewise, sideways, you know, they could generally, like, they're passive aggressive. But again, in this situation, the boss knew that they could hand this person their butt, as they say, and get up all in that. And it was horrible to hear about and horrible to know about. But that boss could be that way for you, but then perfect with other people. And one thing I do is I try to fight out of that. I try to fight out, if you're gonna be toxic, boss, know that you're gonna hear what I think for real. And the chances of you continuing to be toxic and, let's say, rude to me are gonna be very, very slim. And not that I believe I hold all of this power, but I hold the power over how I'm gonna feel because of what you're trying to do to me. Do you understand? At least that. So I believe the best way to lose your sanity is to be as honest, truthful, respectful, and professional at your job as you can possibly be without being a doormat. And that's the most simple way I can put that. Don't let people walk all over you, but don't walk over anybody else either. Are work friends real friends or just survival alliances? Um, I say it depends. Some people who are friends with you are only going to be friends with you when it relates to your job, and beyond that, you have nothing else in common. Some people try to keep it real. I know it became a cliche, a bad thing when back in the day when they had the show, the Chappelle show, and when I think they had one segment or segments when I think it was more than one where it said, when keeping it real goes wrong or keeping it 100, um, I don't think you can ever go wrong with keeping it real. The question is, what is your definition of real, right? Someone would say. But I mean, I think as long as you're being completely honest, but still caring about other people, I think that's the best way to be. And I think then you can be free. You can be free and you can be real with people. Do you understand? Like, um, keeping it professional and nice. It's like, for instance, let's just say you're at your job and you're a guy and you see a very beautiful outfit on a very pretty coworker, right? So, what would you call keeping it real? Would keeping it real mean you walk up to her and you smack her on her butt? No, because that's not professional, that's not respectful, and it's abuse. Do you understand? Whereas, do you just walk past the person in the hallway and say, hey, and keep it moving and never brighten their day by saying, hey, you look good today? You know what I mean? Are you able to do that? Because some people would say that's crossing the line. Right. The person bought that exact set for $2,000 because they didn't want anybody to notice or to make mention about it, or the hairstyle they got. They went to the salon and got the best hairdo for the ages, and it cost them $700. And they don't want anybody to say anything. They just want, well, just let me be in my little corner. I know I look wonderful, but don't make mention of it. I don't know. I think honestly, as I said, work friends can be real friends. You just don't need to take everybody home with you, right? You're not necessarily going to phone everybody. You're not going to necessarily text or message or friend somebody online. You just are real. I think you can. I think you can compartmentalize your job and the people at work. I don't think you have to take everybody home with you. And maybe it's a time thing. Maybe eventually you'll take a lot more people. I'm not saying they're coming home to have dinner with you. I mean, in your home life. Like, you may not necessarily want your spouse to know about Jonathan at work. Or maybe you do over time. You know what I mean? But I think you can be real wherever. So I think at least that's what I try to do. I try to be me no matter where I am, as professional and as nice as I can possibly be. But I don't speak, I always tell people, I don't speak workinese. Now, obviously, I will use terms from the job, terms from the profession at times, but in general, I just speak as me, one individual at a job that I do with people that I do them with, and hopefully out of that comes real lasting long relationships or real true friendships that maybe not that are not necessarily going to last that long. You know what I mean? I'm going to do a couple more questions because this episode is getting long. Why do so many smart people stay in jobs that eat them away? Or eat away at them? Well, for obvious reasons, right? Bills, commitment, love for getting things done and being faithful, just like a relationship. Some people aren't totally enamored and happy to be there, but they know that they're there and it's their responsibility, right? And then some people feel that everything's not amazing and things are eating away at them, but they still want to be committed and do the right thing. And for them, they might feel that doing the right thing is staying committed to the cause. It's taking care of your life and paying your bills so you can be committed to that job. And I think the world's probably lacking a lot of people like that who just stay because it's what they've chosen, it's what they've agreed on. And you can take that from your job to work to your job, or home to job, and job to home. Commitment is a real serious thing. I don't know if I've always really understood the fullness of it. As a young guy, I don't think I did. Although that's what I saw in my life. I saw my parents work for 22 and 37 years at one company each. I saw them stay into a marriage that it seemed like it was a, I mean, they went to bed every night, but it wasn't like full of emotion and nurture and and displays of affection for us. It just, it was something. And I always, sometimes you don't really know. Does my mom like my dad? Does my dad like my mom? Does my mom love my dad? Does my dad love my mom? And one thing I can honestly say is that when my dad passed away, beyond the not having a partner anymore part of it, because I think that would be a part for anybody, even if you never talk to the person, but you always watch their back, like that movie. Oh, was it Do the Right Thing? I think it was, or Jungle Fever. The thing was that they've stayed together. They don't talk anymore, but every night she would wash the guy's back and those things, and that was just something she did. But I don't even know why I veered off to that. But the point is, I knew that there was more than commitment there. The time that you spend, obviously that's commitment. That shows commitment. And called to duty, and you take up that duty and you do your duty, that shows commitment again, and it's really nice to see. But from the things that she said, her actions, her shown emotion, I saw that there was truly love for my dad. And that was great to see. And I don't know that all kids see that, whether their parents stay together or they don't, Last question. Is chasing your passion at work a luxury or a necessity? For me, it's a necessity. And the reason why chasing your passion at your job, why I think it's a necessity is because I think you can find passions within. And again, I guess I'm talking about home, and I'm saying out in the workforce, out in the world. You can always find a passion. Maybe your job is the most humdrum, plain, boring existence. Okay, let's just keep it really, really, really simple. So hopefully you can extrapolate this into any type of life. Maybe your job is cutting the grass, right? Maybe all you do, and maybe it's only one lawn you cut. You cut one lawn, and you know you're going to cut one lawn for the rest of your life. Maybe you're like, how can I find a passion out of cutting the same lawn in the same way every day, 5 days a week for 8 hours? Obviously, that doesn't make sense, but you get what I mean. That's just like you're doing the same thing. Maybe you're working at a factory, right? But let's just say this lawn for now because it's a little bit more. And I think you could still find these things in a factory job, right? Maybe you care and you want to find passion in your job. So because you've already decided this is a commitment, I'm going to be here and this is what I'm going to do. So maybe you find a passion for keeping weeds out of your lawn. Maybe that's your thing. Or maybe you pluck weeds out of your lawn, but you realized, and sometimes even looking at this lawn I'm looking at right now, I would say there's at least 10 different types of weeds in that lawn. The question is, are they really weeds? Maybe your thing is growing the weeds in a separate place or a separate pot to see what comes out of them. Maybe you're going to now scientifically check out these weeds and find out that something over here is good for knee pain. Something over here is good to put in tea. Do you understand? And I'm not saying this, remember, you're just cutting a lawn. But what I'm saying is something is as simple and as boring and possibly from the outside looking really lame, but you've decided to check out what these things that we call weeds are. You know what I mean? Or maybe your thing is just to have the best cut lawn with stripes down it. And you want to make sure that the stripes are perfectly parallel. You understand? And that's your thing. And you get so amazing at it that people start to notice. And maybe your thing is just to do a job so well that people notice. Or maybe in cutting the grass, you want to make sure that your blades are cutting at a certain angle and always like katana sharp, where you could slice one blade of grass 15 times before it actually hits the ground. Like, you know what I mean? Like maybe your thing is to make sure that the lawnmower is the best running lawnmower, and that's your passion. And so like maybe that's your thing. In other words, I believe that you should be in every situation chasing your passion in a job that you've chosen to do. And I think when you chase a passion within your job, even if it's not the most exciting job, maybe if it's not the most lucrative career you've chosen, maybe you don't get paid that much money, maybe you're struggling for most of your life. Again, but that's where you are and that's what you've chosen to do. I think finding passion in everything is what really, 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 really makes the difference. And hopefully you can understand this and you can, well, if it makes sense, apply it, you know? But I mean, at the end of the day, I would say, you know what? Don't let your direct deposit keep your peace. You know what I mean? Just knowing that that same money is going to be there and you can pay the same bills, it might be good for some people. Some people are going to look at that, you know what? They want to have more so they can give more. Maybe some people just want to make more to have more. But I would say, you know what? At the end of the day, although you're trying to find passion in a job, I would say at the end of the day, um, if paying your bills kills your character and being real and being honest, then I think that's too expensive. But I think nothing is too expensive to give a person in your life that you've decided to be with. And I think if you look at life like that, there's nothing I wouldn't give. And if that's the place you are, then that's the good thing. And if you're striving to be a person to be that way, I think you're on the right track. Anyhow, I'm sorry, I'm going to cut this one short. As I said, I don't know how many people really like me rambling on forever, and we are under an hour, and I want to keep it that way. Look, relationships don't need to be perfect, but they should be real. You're not crazy for wanting peace. You're not weak. Well, you can be weak for walking away, but and generally, you know, if you walk away from something, you're not weak just because you walked away, but maybe in the way that you walk away, you got to mind that. And you're definitely not broken if you're still figuring it out because you're fixing things. So you got to look at it. Am I broken or am I being fixed? Just keep it honest with yourself and others. And I think everything will work out how they're supposed to work out. All right, y'all. I'm going to try to keep it real next one as well. My podcasts are always real. Always as real as I can possibly be. So, but sometimes they're more scripted, obviously, as you know from being here. Anyhow, thanks for coming out. This is MCM, and you are listening to You're Probably Right. Hey, come check out You're Probably Right podcast. Society is getting more unpredictable every day, but at the same time, predictable in its unpredictability. Say that 4 times real fast. Come with me as I attempt to find clarity in all the fog while staying way outside the box and kicking the box way down the road with my size 12 docs. I use the Bible, experience, education, fortune, misfortune, life's lessons, life's mistakes to sort through all the mess. I talk about news, God, God, self help, sports, sickness, health, music, parenting, love, humbleness, hurt, pain, joy, and all the things that might make you say, I never thought of it that way. Hopefully, anyway. Also, I take a stab at answering tough and not so tough questions, and all the while understand that, listen, sometimes you end up in the hot seat and there's no thermostat. Well, that's how it is here. And because there's no topic, very few topics off the table, Torontonians will understand that Doug Ford reference there. Hopefully the podcast will be helpful and uplifting. And hey, maybe you'll find your own private Idaho here somewhere. Hope to see you soon.